More wisdom from actors. Welcome back to part 2 of the conversation between myself and fellow working actor Alex Collins. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, I'm not in Atlanta right now. One of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. See, she even travels with me. Okay, let's just jump right back into the conversation because it's raining where I am. And in this segment, we talk about training, one-on-one coaching versus classes, the difference between coaching and teaching if you were to hire someone for your self-tape. And this is a very important distinction for you newer actors who are watching. So please pay attention to this whole conversation. Because one of the reasons, for instance, that up to this point, we have not really, at Get Tape, we have not really opened our services to include coaching. It's a philosophical thing for us, which is, and mainly geared more towards newer actors who are going to substitute the coaching for classes. In other words, they don't have a good, solid foundation of classes yet, but they do smell and sense the opportunity that they've been sent by their agent. And in some cases, maybe they prematurely have an agent. You know, they might be that new to the business that maybe they're just not quite ready for prime time. And yet, you know, there's no discernment over who can book an appointment here. And so if someone who's really new to the game books a coaching appointment, a coaching/taping appointment, which we don't offer that at this point. We might in the future, but then if I'm coaching them in in that space and then taping them as we coach, now I'm on the hook for sort of being the bumpers in the bowling lane, and yet when they get to set and there are no bumpers because they're not taking me unless they want to pay me to come to set with them, then it's like, can they still bowl that strike that they seem to have gotten to in the audition, but really with the help of those bumpers, which was that coach. And so for me, and if we were to offer coaching, and it sounds silly probably to some people, but we're about to move into a new space. We actually have a separate room that we'll be able to use for coaching. So it would be a coaching room, but there won't be a camera there. There won't be the ability to tape it there. Even just that physical act of moving from this space to that space, I would want the actor to be able to carry whatever it was they just sort of stumbled upon, or what they, whatever revelation they had, and be able to perform that in a different space, be able to now take that on and not just like the coach is just getting there, just, okay, hold on to that, please, and then let me just record it. Great. Whew, we can relax. You can stop being, so neurotic about it. It needs to be something that I feel confident they can then take with them to set whatever we discovered in that moment. And for some actors, that's a non-issue. It's like, well, duh. But I think for a lot of actors who are looking to that coaching experience as, I need you to fix me, I need you to teach me. And it's like, that's the reason why we're not calling it a teaching appointment, because I'm not teaching you. When you're on the field for, even if it's a scrimmage, the coach is giving you shorthand pointers. I'm not going to teach you how to dribble that soccer ball whilst on the field. I'm not going to teach the keeper, what a W, was it the W grip? Like, I'm not going to teach you that.
Triangle?
Yeah. I'm not going to teach you that while you're on the field. And I think some actors are too new to even understand that difference right now. And so it's caused us to not want to blur those lines between coaching and taping the actor. And I know for some people that still is kind of like, seems like just semantics.
No, I think it's a really important distinction. And for every actor, that invisible line where the light bulb goes off is different. And so that newer actor who's looking for that teaching with a coaching appointment, what they're really saying is, I want you to give me a tool to put in my tool belt, and that tool needs to be sharp, and you need to teach me how to use it in the moment, right? Versus once you've crossed that invisible line as an actor, and you've gotten a certain amount of experience in broad multidiscipline training, you come in wearing the tool belt with the tools already there. And then the coaching is just saying, which tool are we going to use today? And then, all right, maybe we sharpen that just a little bit in this moment or in this moment. Because an experienced actor doesn't need the teaching. They just need another set of eyes to say, have you considered this element? Have you considered this choice? Have you considered this entrance or this exit? Oh, what about that relationship there? That feels fun to play with. Oh, yes. And now it's a dialogue. So it's a two-way dialogue between experienced artists versus on this side again of the invisible line. It's not so much a two-way dialogue. It is the newer actor receiving instruction and trying to then implement that paint by number solution, which kind of puts you, get taped, which is why you haven't ventured into this realm yet, on the hook in a way. Because they're saying, well, I did all the things that you said and I didn't get a callback or I didn't book the job. Boo. No, that's not it. It's not it's not an if-then situation. Maybe you didn't have enough training. You didn't have enough tools in your tool belt to really understand how to create that fully fleshed out character in this moment.
And I think there is one distinction with coaching, which is if you were to hire me to not coach you for an audition, but just to do a one-on-one session, I think that is a completely different beast altogether. Still something that we're not at a point that we're offering, but I think we'd be open to doing that in the future. Because I do think the class experience is very beneficial in so many ways. Yes, it might be a 3-hour class, and yes, you might only be on stage or you might only be working for a small portion of that class. But man, when I think back to those early years, we were in the same classes or the same studio for a long time, and I did learn so much. I not only learned so much from the other actors and their work, and watching the teachers critique that work, and it sort of turning the wheels in my head. But then also the intangibles of being around other actors in those spaces in between, before class, after class. My first audition, my first agent came from someone who was working for the agency, who was in my acting class, who came up to me afterwards like, don't tell anyone, but I work for Houghton and I think you'd be good for us. And I was like, okay. So like there's so many intangibles to be in the classroom, but then sometimes it makes more sense to do the one-on-one coaching. But I still think there is the distinction, at least for us, between, okay, I'm just trying to find a new tool. Great. Then we can sit and I can give you some exercises. I can maybe pull a script, something to work on, and hopefully make some progress over a few sessions versus, like you said, I love the analogy of the tool belt where for the experienced actor, you're not walking in with an empty tool belt. I'm just maybe reminding you, did you remember that you had that wrench in your back? This. And then it just becomes like they see the tool and it's like, ha, look at you, genius. And it's like, actually, no, I just pointed at that tool and said, what about this? And then there's this weird thing for actors, which is if you told me to do it, then it's kind of like, it's your idea. So at least, in terms of exploring it, it's why we love to be directed by casting or by that director at a session, because when that director gives us that note, there's an element of like, okay, I'm no longer the one on the hook for this. This is now your fault if it goes wrong in a way, right? And I've even had directors go, you know what, never mind.
Go back to the way you were doing. Go back.
Your way was better.
Forget that one. Yeah.
So I think because it's such a personal, going back to this idea of the soul, you're giving a piece of your soul. If at any point I can involve someone else in the equation and be like, please don't make me carry this load by myself, because it feels like a heavy burden, even if it's, a Judd Apatow comedy, like it still kind of feels like it's this heavy load and this burden. And it's because if I've been doing it for 20 plus years, it's also the burden of the 20 years that I'm dragging with me. And even in that moment, if I've hired Alex to just give me some perspective, then it's worth it. Even if it's like one sentence that coach gives me, then it's like,
God, you got so many good nuggets in this portion. So I want to go back to the copious notes, right? You said you might only be working 10 or 15 minutes in that 3-hour class, but I remember my first 3, 4, 5 years as a student of acting. I don't have them anymore. I couldn't schlep them around, but notebooks full. And I realized I was learning more probably from the notes I was taking from other actors, because then you're looking at it through the lens of what would I have done as the actor? What would I have done if I was doing that character, that piece? And then you start to look at, the relationships, my choices, all of that stuff. And when you're brand new, shiny baby actor, maybe you're miles away, but then your instincts start to get sharp the tool starts to get sharper and sharper. And over time, you realize, oh my gosh, my notes here are really starting to line up with what the teacher said to that actor. I'm on the right track. And that grows and grows and grows until you have your own technique, your own process, whatever that is. And it might be 3 years, it might be 10 years, whatever. It could be a lifelong pursuit. I mean, we're always learning. And then on the other side of that, the value in the coaching one-on-one is at that point, if you're a working actor, your coach is just a title, but it's really peers. In most cases, it's probably a working actor as well. Sometimes they're not acting anymore, but in a lot of cases they are. And so they're really familiar with things that are casting right now, or the type of genres. Right now we're blending genres, like The Bear. How is that a comedy, right? Is it a single cam? No, that's a drama. I'm sorry, but there are moments of lightness. Will Trent. It's a 1 hour nighttime drama procedural, but there's a lot of humor in it. Yeah. So there's these like hybrid genres now. And if you've never watched it or you don't know the tone of the show, you're going to totally miss the humor in there. Or you're going to inject humor where, okay, this scene is not the humor. This is the straight delivery of information scene. And so I think having that coach may just give you that one little scalpel sharp incision that guides you on the right path, where maybe you were real close, but you just couldn't see the forest for the trees in that moment. It doesn't mean you made wrong choices. They just sharpened the help for you. And the other thing is it could be, especially at that point, you're probably doing multiple scenes for an audition. Maybe it's a recurring guest star or a series regular audition. So it's probably like those three-page scenes, right? And then, gosh, these feel the same. I know there needs to be some contrasting elements in here. What you got? Help. Yeah. And it may just be one word that goes, oh, that's it. Yep. And the clouds part and the sun comes out and you're, oh, that's it. Thank you so much, Matt. It was right there in front of me the whole time. Because sometimes you're so embedded in it. It's like, remember back in school when you'd write term papers and you start going cross-eyed because there's 50 pages or 100 pages and you spelled the word "the" wrong at the top of page 1, but you just can't see it because you've looked at it 100 times. Hey, Matt, you spelled "the" wrong. Did I? Oh! That's what a coach does.
Yeah, there's a reason why, a Major League Baseball player is not going to group clinics anymore. That they have a batting coach, they have a pitching coach, a catching coach. The point being that not that an actor needs to create that dividing line, but I think there's a reason why, I think I would recommend that if you're starting out, you should definitely be in a class. Yes. Because of you need to see it objectively from those other perspectives so that when you get that note, it doesn't feel as cloudy or as confusing. You actually see it in action with someone else when you have no stake in that interaction. It
doesn't feel personal either.
Exactly.
Like you're going to hear it 3 or 4 other times, that class, or multiple times over the month or the months. Oh, that wasn't an attack or an affront on me. I'm not less of an actor or a person because I got that note repeatedly.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then even just, the nuance of you start to learn the language of that teacher by watching them talk to other people. Like, oh yeah, that's just the way they give that note. Also, I'm a big fan that you need multiple teachers in those early parts of your career, whether it's you're taking multiple classes simultaneously or you spend 6 months here and then you move to this teacher over here, because that first teacher, you'll just take them as gospel truth, like, okay, this is acting. And then you get to a second teacher and there's a little bit of confusion because like, wait, that's not what my other teacher says. And then you realize, like, on that third teacher, like, oh, everyone has their opinion. I need to pull the things that are working for me. Also, some teachers, like, I'm the type of teacher that will you're going to learn more about directing and seeing other aspects of the on-camera industry. Whereas if you take someone who learned straight from Sandy Meisner, they're not going to care about camera angles in that 6-month Meisner class. It's repetition exercises and 3 entrances, and it's going to be so much more about to something we were talking about before we started recording, which is it's going to be more internal work of getting you to a place, clearing out all those obstacles that are preventing you from doing truthful work, and having multiple teachers, one that is going to really start to get your insides lined up properly, so to speak, but then one that starts to give you insight into a little bit more of the other sides of that on-set experience, so that you start to develop a little bit more of a well-rounded brain of. So when a director is talking in a purely results-oriented format of like, I need you to do this, I need it to sound like this, I'm going to give you a line reading actor. That all of that internal work that you did for so long with that teacher isn't suddenly confused and thrown out the door because you've never experienced a director that talks in results.
You just touched on something that I notice in newer actors. They become resume stuffers because they feel like, oh, I need to get all this different type of training. So they flit around studio to studio, class to class, teach. So it's a month here, month there, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And you can tell because the minute they get up on their feet, it was only surface level work in each of those places because they never stuck around long enough to dive deep. Now, the opposite is also true, where some actors stay in one place far too long, and then they plateau because you come to understand the teacher's shorthand. You come to understand what that environment is like and the style of notes you're going to receive, and then you're not challenged anymore. There needs to constantly be challenge. And actors sometimes will choose work that is comfortable for them as well versus work that is more challenging, stretching, fear-inducing in some kind. Maybe it's being really vulnerable, or maybe it's playing with multicam and you don't feel comfortable in that size of role, that kind of thing. And so there is a happy medium of being a resume stuffer and being a sitter forever, Yeah,
exactly.
And everybody's, barometer is different on what that is. But we can, at our studio, we have students apply for certain levels of classes, and you can tell. You can tell just before I even watch the self-tapes for auditioning, I can tell resume stuff. They've only been an actor for 1 year and they have these 6 different classes. Yeah. There's no real development going on there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great point. That is a good asterisk next to, because I did a video early, like back in 2020, right when I first started the YouTube channel for us, about like you need at least 3 teachers. And that's such a great corollary, like not in the same year.
Not in the same year. No.
not within the first 6 months.
Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays each week.
Yeah. And it does mean that you might need some course correction. Like for me, I know let's see, John was my first teacher at Nick's studio, and I was with him probably a year and a half. And then moved on, then I was with Nick and like with each teacher and then teachers after that. And yeah, it's like, I'm the type that I probably wait too long sometimes. Like you went out to LA and I was the type that my inertia was such that I know I eventually need to move to LA. I always felt like I was one step behind in terms of how slow I make decisions. So in the type that I err on the side of probably staying with the teacher a little bit longer than necessary, to the point where now I'm acting for the teacher as opposed to developing myself.
Oh, wow. What a break.
Now I'm like, especially if there is some sort of carrot, like a showcase, then it's like, I just need to do what this teacher wants to get into that showcase. And you lose yourself at some point. There's that law of diminishing returns where I'm no longer actually progressing. I'm now just gaming the system.
Right.
What this teacher wants, how to get my gold star this week. And so I there were probably times early in my development where I could have shaken things up a little bit more or been a little bit more aware of what was happening. And but then that flip side, of just jumping from like the buffet, like if you're just getting, then your plate just looks nasty. You got one of everything. Like you need time to cleanse your palate, right? I mean, how do you really know that you like that second course when you still have the first course in your mouth? It's like, and then it's just all confused tastes, and it's like, well, what did you actually learn from that? Well, I don't know. It was all mixed together. Okay, hopefully that was an enlightening conversation for both new actors and experienced actors alike. Tune in next week for the third part in this series as we continue to talk about all different topics related to the actor's journey. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.